Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Leta Laugle. We're going to be discussing her amazing children's book, Mommy, Where Do Butterflies Go? Now, it's available for purchase through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, pretty much all of the regular online book resellers. Head on over there, pick up your copies. But people, listen, if you want to gather everything that Leta has in store, well, you got to do yourself a favor and head directly to her personal site. And that's letalaugle.com. There you'll find more information on her, more information on this fantastic book, even find hyperlinks set up to take you to the purchasing pages. So one more time, that's letalaugle.com. And before we go any further, I want to take this opportunity and point out that Leta was brought to our network, People of Distinction today, by one of the best firms in the business. And of course, I'm talking about CITI of Books. So people, listen to me. For my writers out there, if you have gone through your process, you have spent countless amounts of hours investing in creating your masterpiece. You've had some sleepless nights along the way, but you've completed it. You see the final product there in front of you, and you've now completed everything except you need someone to help you move the book you just created. Well, if that's you, give yourself the best gift you could possibly give and contact CITI of Books. I'm telling you, people, they're one of the best in the business to do it, and this is exactly what they specialize in. So head on over to cityofbooks.com today and gather all of the ways that their fantastic team is going to help you do just that. And listen, it is a true pleasure to have Leta here on the line. I'm telling you, this has so much to offer. You're going to need to add it to your shelf. And I promise you, we're only going to scratch the surface here today, okay? We're going to capture the essence. But then the onus is going to be on you to purchase your copies and truly embark upon that journey with your children. But for the time being, sit back and strap in. Leta, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, Benji. Thank you so much for having me on your show today.
Absolutely. Leta, listen, this is a pleasure, okay? I think what you're doing here is needed for so many reasons. And, again, I think you've chosen the perfect community to direct this book towards, right? Having it directed towards that particular age group offers value and wisdom that is truly important and very impactful. But I think it surpasses those particular boundaries. As I said in my opening, I think there's a lot of adults that can also benefit from this narrative, just from raising their awareness and formulating conversations. So thank you for writing the book, and thank you even more for being here with us to discuss it. Before we go into the words on those pages, though, tell us a little bit more about your background. Who is Leta Laugle?
Well, Benji, Leta grew up on a farm in Halifax County, Virginia. I'm a farm girl. Mm-hmm. I went to Peace College, got my associate's degree in psychology, and then I went on to East Carolina University and got a double major in psychology and sociology and progressed to master's degree in child and family therapy. Then I went on and started a practice in child and family therapy, moved on up to the division of rehab medicine. So I've been in the rehab field now for over 20 years. So I've done a lot of different things, but I've been working with people, taking care of people, I guess you'd say.
Yeah. Leta, I love it. And listen, it's a great segue that you've established for now my follow-up question, because I'm starting to connect the dots here. I mean, clearly your background is in human psychology, right? You've had a practice in therapy. Yeah. This is what you do, and this is what you know. So, you're someone that has definitely been knowledgeable enough to create a book of this particular subject matter? So I can assume the answer to this next question, but I'm not going to do that. I have you here on the line. I want to hear it straight from your mouth. Leta, talk to us. What inspired you to write this book?
This may surprise you. I actually wrote the title almost 40 years ago.
Wow.
And I wrote it when my father passed. And the title then was Where Do Butterflies Go? And I wrote, oh my gosh, I don't know how many pages then. It was a full story. My friend, Alan Albert, who was a producer out of New York City, and he was producing shows in Hershey, Pennsylvania. At that time, he wanted me to publish the story. And I thought about it, and I was going to, publish it at that time. But then he passed away, and things just happen in life, and I just forgot.
Yeah.
And interestingly, too, I had my thesis for my master's degree was in the coping strategies of kindergarten children. And my graduate professor wanted me to publish that piece, but I didn't publish then. But what led me to really want to publish this particular book, this past year, my mother went into hospice.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
In Halifax County. And I had to just kind of drop my work for a while to go care for her in Halifax County. The morning preceding her death, a huge swallowtail butterfly landed on my car. And this was the morning leading up to her death. That night, as I was sitting by her bedside and I was writing her eulogy, when I wrote the very last line, that's when she passed.
Wow.
The day of her celebration of life, my husband actually saw a single yellow butterfly at the church prior to the service. Now, luckily, I didn't see this butterfly, or I would not have been able to deliver her eulogy. After the service at the gravesite, a yellow butterfly appeared at the gravesite. And then after the celebration of life, the day after, I found my writing that my mother had kept. So then after each day, after when I got back to Virginia Beach, every single day I got a sympathy card. And for 15 days in a row, I got a yellow butterfly in the mail on the card. So I decided, this is no coincidence.
Yeah.
I have found, the one I wrote, yellow butterflies appearing everywhere and sympathy cards. I've got to write this. So I decided to gear the story to little children, since the young children and my mom's family were having a difficult time dealing with her passing.
Yeah.
And I knew that as a child and family therapist, even though they're resilient, they still have trouble dealing with loss.
Of course.
And so my story helps them to deal with loss in a very positive, faith-based way. Now, the other thing, Benji, that's interesting, that the day when I finished the story on Mother's Day weekend, and I was going to use this special clutch purse for church, and it was an empty purse. When I looked inside, I found a small silver leaf circle. It was a little tiny little piece of jewelry, and the inside of it was 2 golden butterflies inside this leaf circle. Now, I thought my husband had put that in this purse and was surprising me for completing the book. And so I ran downstairs to thank him, for putting this little tiny medallion in the purse to surprise me. He didn't give it to me. And to this day, I have no idea where this little tiny piece of jewelry came from. I've asked everybody. Nobody's seen it. Nobody knows where it came from. It wasn't my mother's, but it's the most special and symbolic piece I've ever owned. It's just lovely. I wear it on a chain around my neck. It's just gorgeous. It just gives me goosebumps, the fact that I found it.
What a great way to end that answer, because goosebumps is what I have right now. People, listen, I know you can't see me out there, but after that answer, I'm telling you, my hairs are standing up on my arm. This is so incredible. Call it divine intervention, call it fate. I mean, wow. People, I'm telling you, Amazon and Barnes & Noble are where you got to go. LetaLaugle.com. Check out the personal website. Pick up your copies of Mommy.
You haven't heard the other little piece, Benji. The other piece is that the day before Christmas Eve, that was the day that I found out that the book was published.
Wow.
And so Christmas Eve, I was going to church. My husband couldn't attend because we had just come back from New York City. He sang at Carnegie Hall with the Navy choir, so he ended up getting COVID. But anyway, wow. I went to church by myself, and I had stopped to visit with a friend, and I had put my hands in my pocket because it was cold, and this is a coat that I wear all the time. And when I reached into my coat pocket, there was a little tiny piece of jewelry that was shaped like a flower, and it had the leaves were black, and it had little stones that were either glass or rhinestones, and in the back was a clip. So it was really old. I don't have the foggiest idea where it came from. This is a coat I wear all the time. It wasn't there the day before. I hadn't been anywhere for anybody to put it in my pocket. My husband certainly didn't do it because he was sick.
Right.
So, it's a total mystery how this got into my pocket. So nobody that I know put it in my pocket. It's just mysterious, coincidental, but it just happens that it's Christmas Eve and it's the day after the book came out. I just think it's odd. I just like divine intervention. I just think it's wonderful.
I'm telling you, I can see your next book already. You need to come up with just the origin story, right? Because this is incredible. Again,
I think so too. My publisher thought so too.
People, listen, you can put whatever particular phrase on it that you want. Bottom line is, this is impactful. And that origin story is for the adults, right? Mommy, Where Do Butterflies Go will be for the children. Create that awareness in that conversation. But that origin story can be for the adults, helping them process their own things and creating awareness within them to be mindful of those little pieces of, again, in this instance, we'll call it divine intervention. But those little pieces around us, because people, when you start to really pay attention, you'll see it happens all the time. Little things like that, when you really raise your awareness, those are signs. And again, for my believers out there, for my spiritual people, you can point that those are ways that God speaks to us indirectly, little moments and things in ways that he touches our lives. I'm telling you, this can get deep, and this is some fantastic stuff.
It can.
Leta, my follow-up question here that I want to go into, because I am engulfed in everything that you're saying here, but I want to take a step back and and ask for some advice here. Because not only through this process, you creating the book, and if I may assume, just to put it out there, it seems like this, when you first created, not even Mommy, Where Do Butterflies Go, but you started off by creating a book called Where Do Butterflies Go after your father passing. Had no intentions of publishing it at that time. So it seems like this was maybe a way for you to process your own emotions and work through that process yourself by writing it out. So you have your experience.
That's correct.
You have your experience working through your emotions in the origin of this book, or a version of this book. But then you also have your background in therapy. So you are someone that is more than qualified to offer advice. My follow-up question here for you, Leta, for any parents out there listening in, if we want to keep it honed in, and I think we should, because again, your background is in child therapy, so let's keep it honed in on the children. What advice would you give parents if they, in their family, is going through a process where they lost a loved one, and they have to broach that conversation with their children? Where does one even begin to have that conversation and help their children understand this monumental concept of death?
You know, the book focuses on that, you know, God sends us comfort whenever we need it. Mm-hmm. I mean, all we have to do is just trust, believe, and pray. Mm. And that comfort is all around us. That's the focus and message of the book. Wow. And for children, that's what we want children to learn, is that God's all around us and that he supports us.
Yeah. Leta.
And he's there for us when we reach out to him. Mm-hmm. Our loved ones never leave us. They're just right there in our hearts.
I love the answer that you just gave for a lot of different reasons, mm-hmm. right? Again, for my believers out there, right? For my religious following, this is something right up their alley, right? Putting your faith in God and trusting your concerns and your fears in him, and knowing that he will help you through whatever process. And listen, for me, I've always been someone that has been more spiritual than religious. We're not going to go into the reasons why it's not pertinent for the interview, but I am definitely a believer. And I am a firm believer in the fact mm-hmm. that God doesn't put anything on your plate that you are not strong enough to handle. So any obstacle you are encountering, you are strong enough to overcome it. So I love that advice for that particular perspective. But here's why it even broadens beyond that spiritual and religious realm. You said something that I think is very poignant in terms of teaching children the fact that, and I can't remember the exact words that you used, but it basically boiled down to, there are good things all around us, right? There are positive things all around us. That brings up a fantastic point, and something that I believe in, and something that I've mentioned here on our podcast a number of times. Leta, I remember at a very early age, I can't pinpoint an exact year, but it was sometime around my teenage years, where I realized when I focused on one negative thing, it's amazing how all of a sudden, all I could see was negative things everywhere. It just seemed like negativity was drawn to me. Well, I stopped and I thought, well, if that happens with my negative thoughts, could not the same thing happen in reverse if I focus on my positive thoughts? Well, it's interesting, Leta. When I started to focus on the positive around me, it then happened where all of the positive things were then drawn to me, and all I started to recognize were positive things. Now, this is why I connected to what you were just saying. It's not like there were more positive things that were happening now that I was focusing on it. I just shifted my awareness to now I could see the positive that was already there, but now I'm focusing on it.
Yes.
So it brings up a great point to what you're talking about, where shifting your children's awareness to recognize all of the positive things that are already happening around them will help them in their difficult circumstances. I love that notion. And I think that is something that can apply to children, That is something that it can apply to teenagers, to young adults, to elderly. It doesn't matter your age, your background. This is something that can influence your lives. People, this is why I'm saying this book is for you.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. It takes more muscles to frown than it does to smile.
Yeah. People, I'm telling you, this is the book for you. For so many reasons, a lot of which we've discussed already, but there are so many more. Well, here's the thing. We're at the end of the interview now, okay? So as much as I could sit here and I can talk to Leta for hours, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to refrain because now I'm going to put the ball in your court. Now I'm going to put the responsibility and the onus on you. You know where you got to go, and just in case you forgot, it's Amazon, it's Barnes & Noble, it's cityofbooks.com, it's LetaLaugle.com. Head on over there today, pick up your copies of Mommy, Where Do Butterflies Go? And while you're at it, I'm hoping that there is more on the horizon. We joked in levity to the next book for the origin story of this to be the one addressed. Well, here's the thing. Based upon the overwhelming show of support, that will be the message to Leta to let her know that we need another book. You know where you gotta go. Head on over there today. Pick up your copies while you're at it. Get an extra copy as a gift for someone else to add to their shelf, because this is a remarkable resource that we all need to take advantage of. Head on over there and do your part. Leta, this has been a true pleasure. An absolute delight. Thank you once again for being a guest on People of Distinction.
Benji, you were fabulous. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.